Hello, welcome to step 25 for the M1070 build. We got lucky with this because step 25 is almost essentially a clone of step 24. In fact, I'd say it is because it is. It's exactly the same thing. Instead of doing step 24 twice on the instruction sheet, they just put in a 25. So with that luck, I've got all the parts set out, cleaned up and ready to go. So we'll run through this real quick using the experience from 24, and hopefully I'll be able to upload this video. So first and foremost is to put the cable drum together, glue that down. Now what I did with the previous build, I'll do here. This is the side that didn't get glued in. It's going to be stronger right now. I'm just drilling a hole directly in. You can see I'm lining up the drill bit almost exactly on the side of the drum. That is so that we can get the cable as close as possible to the side, so that when we have this glued in and we're winding this around, we don't have a gap on the short side. We don't want any more of a gap on this side than we need. I'm not exactly sure how close I was with the last one, but, and show there, I'm trying to do this at 90 degrees. This is just to secure our line, and I don't remember, but I had to go a little ways to get this to go in. It looks like my drill bit might be actually dulling down. There we go. But it'll punch right through. Just clean that out a little bit. And file this down, just so we don't get any burrs on the edge, because this is going to be super glued in, not plastic glued. So I've got this, and then what I'm going to do next is take my picture hanging wire. I've already straightened this out as well. I'm going to crimp the end just a bit with a pair of pliers, and this is just so that I don't have to, unfortunately in crimping it I untwisted it too. What I want to do is be able to just put this in, glue it. I don't have to worry about squaring it off with the drum. That should be good. Get my super glue ready. And as always, you think you have everything ready, and it's not. But so, while I'm working on this, another thing that I noticed that might be of comfort to all of us is the knockout pins. Here we go. Knockout pins on these supports on the back of parts B7 and B10. And that looks like something that's kind of ugly and you want to deal with. Well, after doing the build of the other piece, right in here, you can't see them. The supports for these sides here go pretty much right over them. I didn't even notice that until I took a look at it today and went, well, you know, there's no really good reason to sit and fill those in with putty. So, you know, hooray, good for us. Nothing to worry about. So everything else seems to be in good shape. Just got to get this tip working and we're good to go. I had no idea I was going to have this problem. So there's a good point. No matter how much you think you've got everything set up and ready to go, there's always a potential for a problem. And making a mess, apparently. So all that said, I now have everything ready to go here. I just want to, since I got it on my finger, I'm just going to steal it as my glue for the wire. So like I said, now looking at how the drum is set up on here and which way it wants to be wound, this way right here is how you want it to go. So I'm going to get this in the hole, potentially. Like I said, it really did unwind when I put that. Yeah, it unwound too much. So a warning on using picture hanging wire is, if you bend it at 90 degrees initially, like I did there, trying to head off one problem, you find another. In fact, it's bad enough I may just have to nip this and start over. It just doesn't want to round out, it wants to flatten out as I keep twisting it. We'll see. Oh, there, I may have gotten it. Just need to put a little more glue. Yeah. Sorry for the delay, but again, this is pretty much what real model building's like, right guys? So if you didn't before, get a cup of coffee. Because that's probably what it's going to take. So anyways, make sure that the fat end is to the one side, and then slide your cabling down in. All that hard work I did doesn't seem to really be, yeah, it just got too fat on this end. Okay, so let's go over recovery from a mistake like this. First off, I want this super glue out of here. I don't want to have to deal with that. Take a Q-tip or whatever, but just wipe that out. So far, what's in the hole looks like it's gonna hold all right. Stay where it is and not solidify immediately for the stuff I'm using. So here's what I've done. I've clipped that off. I'm gonna make sure that that doesn't get too fat, and this worked out perfectly yesterday, so I'm a little surprised that I'm having trouble with this, but and there's a bit of a burr from the clipping, so now some of you may say, well, I'm just going to use the thread. That's easy to work with, and that's fine. The only thing I don't like about the thread is the fact that it is thread. You get all the little wires. So I put that in like that. It went in perfectly. Again, fat end on this side, winding it. You may want to think about, now I'm kind of at a bit of a disadvantage here because I have all these parts hanging out and I don't want to whack them while I'm winding this wire, and there's a little bit of tension with this. So I don't want to cause any trouble in that regard. I could have heated this up and taken the tension out of it a little bit better, But as you can see, I've wound it right up to the edge, and I don't want to get too crazy with it now. What I want to do is just get it in there nice and tight so that it's in really good, and give it maybe one good turn so that you can see that it's winding back. At this point in time, everything is kosher and good. Right there. Now, from what I learned yesterday, the tension on this just gets to be a bit much. Hence why I was saying we might want to sorry, thinking out loud here. Hence saying why we might want to anneal this before we use it. What I've done here is just kind of goop on some super glue, because this is going to be the bottom. This is not going to be seen. And work that in so that it's in all of the threads, in the grooves, in between. This is going to be what holds this on for me. Give it a spritz, let it set up. I don't want this to take a million years, but I want to hold this until it sets. How long is that going to take? Well, the accelerant helps, but since I like using this vinyl-based super glue, it gives a little bit of extra working time. I just kind of have to wait until it does its job. And that's usually about 30 seconds, even with the accelerant. And maybe a little more. This might be where having thin set super glue would work really well. Get it all in there so then it's all gripping in there. But I do not seem to have a set of super glue that hasn't prematurely set itself. So there we go. It's still loose. I'll have to deal with it. But what I want to do right now, just to move along, is to cut the wire. I'll be trimming this back later to get rid of this. This is uncomfortable dangling around. And right now this is, you know, it's a little too loose for my taste, but these are the troubles of dealing with picture wire and thread. You could use the thread, it'd look great, but then you get all the hair on it. And there are some of the thinner wires that work, but they're thinner. I mean, they don't look like this heavy-duty cabling, which is what is on this for the M1070. Kind of a bit of a conundrum. Again, maybe the best thing to do would have been to anneal it. How far back can I go? Well, the glue is holding to that, so it's to this. Let's just do some annealing real quick, show you what I'm talking about, and hopefully the warning about it. Now, you have to be careful because the heat's going to travel through the metal and mar the plastic, so you want to hold it with something that's basically a heat sink. In this case, I'm going to use a pair of pliers like this. So I'm holding it like that. Go in, just heat it, run through, really take the tension on. Now here's the problem. You got to be careful with this because it is hot. So if you do not feel comfortable doing this, do not do this. But this is just running a real quick flame through it, being very careful because again, it is hot. Give that a moment. The heat dissipates pretty fast. Not quite cool to the touch. There we go. It's cooling off. Just take a little water. Now I'm cleaning it off because there's always some sort of little bit of soot or ash that goes with that. Unhook that. It's still got some spring to it, so you might have to anneal it more. Might have to do other stuff with it. Let's open it up and see if we can get more annealing with that, rather than just guessing. Looks like the glue let loose, and one part of it. So this this is frustrating. So if you feel like you're frustrated, you're doing it right, I guess. Sometimes you have to heat it up until it starts to glow. But with some of this stuff, you got to be careful, because if you heat it up for too long and get it too hot, it'll start to disappear. You can consume it with flame, especially with smaller wires and such. Now this is definitely getting a different look. It's no longer black on the end. I hope you can see this. It's definitely silvering, like a dull silver. So I'm going to say that that is a better sign that it's annealed. But this is hot. This is a danger. Only try this at home if you feel comfortable doing this. If you do not, or if you have any concerns at all, do not do this. I am an unlicensed idiot trying to help you out. Again, this is going to be hot now. It's probably going to be hotter, so you got to sit and wait for this to cool off. So one way I deal with it, yep, it's still hot enough to sizzle when I touch it, and just wet my fingers and run through. So now I've got my cable. It doesn't really feel like annealing is changing the temper of this enough for me to keep doing it. So, and this is probably the largest part of what I was doing yesterday. So what I'm probably going to do here is at the 20-minute mark, I'll end up stopping and then restarting this, so that I guess I'm going to have a third video for this, just to keep the time down per video. Otherwise, I think that may have been part of my problem with not being able to recover the first video from step 24, or the second part of step 24. I'm just having problems with that, so I'm going to try something else. So what I've done is put super glue in there from a fresh bottle. It may just be that the problem is the age of the glue. Give it a spritz. Let's see how well that responds. Again, it might just be the age of the glue, and that can be, you know, you got to know your tools when you're doing your building. And again, my intention is to put that at the bottom, so it shouldn't be a problem. There we go, letting go, and yeah, it's holding really well. So There's part of the issue is the age of the super glue that I was working with. I don't think it was that old, but it was old enough to where it was causing problems. So as I said, at the 20-minute mark here, I'm going to stop. We're going to go on to part 3.